The Dan Mullen era has begun at UNLV, and this is kind of weird to say, but it's also an exciting time. We're going to take a deep dive into the UNLV Rebels to see what we should expect for a team that is flying high despite the coaching change. Now, the 2024 season was one that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. An 11-3 season was kind of out of the realm of expectations for this program, but they were one of the more exciting teams to watch. And now they go through plenty of change on the coaching staff, plenty of change on the roster. And this is a team that still has high expectations despite all of that. Now, this offense was tremendous last year, averaged 35.4 points per game, 416 yards as well. The defense was opportunistic at times. I think that they finished better in some areas that people expected, but overall, it was definitely the offense was the biggest reason for the team's success. You bring in Zach Arnett to run that defense, though, and Dan Mullen will have a big impact on the offense. Corey Dennis is going to be the offensive coordinator, but Mullen is going to definitely be involved in that offense, calling plays, getting everybody up to speed. I'm very curious how he wins here. I think a lot of people are excited and optimistic about what he can do, but it's going to be TBD for the time being. We have high expectations. We have the ability to know certain things about Dan Mullen, but pairing him with a group of 5 team is really interesting. And there's a lot of change. The departures that you see leaving this team, a lot of them not really surprising. Ricky White is probably the biggest loss of anybody just because he was capable of doing great things as a wide receiver. He was also a part of the special teams as well. You also had a number of other players that were at various different levels, had production for this team and were able to contribute. Now they're off to either they go to Purdue or they're going to other programs as well. You see a number of Power 4 programs listed. Dan Mullen did not waste any time getting players to campus, and via the transfer portal, it was relatively impressive. Anthony Calandria and Alex Orji going to be competing for the starting quarterback job. Those are two guys that come in with very different skill sets, but I trust that Dan Mullen's going to know how to utilize both of them. When you look at what this offense is capable of doing, it's going to go as far as the quarterbacks will take them. You also bring in plenty of talent around them. You bring a number of running backs and wide receivers. You also bring a number of DBs that are going to potentially start right away. You also have some big names, or at least some big names that had either potential at their previous stop and for whatever reason didn't work out. A guy like Justin Flo could be the best player on this team. We just haven't seen it at Arizona. We didn't see it at Oregon that much. We're waiting for that to show up. Same thing with Denver Harris. You've seen glimpses of what he can do, but you haven't seen him live up to his recruiting potential impact. So we'll see what happens there. But overall, you feel pretty good about what this team can do with the talent that you bring in. And we'll go right into those 2 quarterbacks. I think Anthony Calandria is by far the better quarterback between him and Alex Orji. He's a better passer. Yes, he does take risk, and he is one of the riskiest players in college football in terms of his decision making, but he also has the higher upside, in my opinion. Now, Orji is more of that running player that is going to be coming in for different packages, in my opinion, but I also don't know what they're looking at here. Calandria is going to give the offense more balance. He's going to be able to throw the football a little bit more than UNLV is used to seeing. They finished 121st last year, and that's partially because they were running, the go-go offense with quarterbacks that were definitely better runners than they were passers. So that has something to do with it, but Calandria is going to make it look different. And it's not that they're going to stop running the ball because they have players that can run the football. Calandria ran for 277 yards last year with 2 touchdowns, but he threw for 2,100 yards and 13 scores. Orji comes in from Michigan, not an accurate passer by any means, but he'll definitely be asked to pass at times as well, just to give teams a little bit of honesty on defense. He ran for 269 yards and 1 touchdown. So they're still definitely going to run the football. It just won't be nearly as much, I think, than it was last year. However, you do return Jaden Thomas, star running back for this team, second All Mountain West last year, 918 yards and 7 touchdowns. You bring in Kevon Lee. That's a guy who I think has yet to hit his stride, whether that was at Penn State or Mississippi State. plenty of talent, has the ability. I'm curious to see what he can do on a group of 5 team. I think the talent level is still there, but we just don't know what he's capable of doing because we've yet to see it. Jalen Glover will be part of that as well. He is, you didn't see a ton of production from him last year, but in 2023, he had 561 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Utah Utes. Darian Jones could be part of that as well. He's just a young guy to keep an eye on as a freshman, 6 feet, 200 pounds. Everybody's pretty much in the running right now because of the coaching change, because of the roster turnover. Everyone's going to be competing for time, and it's just a matter of who separates themselves from the others. Though I do think the running back position is going to be down to 3 guys at that point. The wide receiver and tight end positions are going to play a huge impact in terms of making life easy for those quarterbacks. The quarterbacks will need some time to get things sorted out with the offensive line. They'll also need time to get some chemistry with the guys catching the football from them. Some of these guys you might remember from their various stops, or if you're a UNLV fan, you know some of these names already. So a guy like Troy Amiri comes in from Arizona State, gets a chance to be more of a factor in this passing attack. 6'4", 215 pounds. And I think that I'm really excited to see what he can do under Dan Mullen. I'm excited to see what Dan Mullen has in store for him. And I'm excited to see what that means for this offense. Jaden Bradley's a familiar face. You really wish that he would have done more last year. But again, part of that had to do with the type of offense they were running. Maybe it had to do more with the other options at wide receiver besides Ricky White. 9 catches, 173 yards, 19.2 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown. JoJo Earl is another guy that you're waiting to see step up. You've seen glimpses of what he can do. I think everybody remembers the viral clip of him at Alabama in his that one practice play, his catch that he made, the juice that he made. You know that he has talent, just haven't seen it put all together yet. But if he figures things out in this offense, this could be really exciting. I think this is a trio of wide receivers that has the potential to do some serious damage if they put it all together. Behind them, you also have guys that will challenge for time. Dejon Reynolds comes in from Pitt, 189 yards and 1 touchdown in 2024. Coy Moore comes in from Western Kentucky, and another returner in D'Angelo Irvin had 9 catches for 177 yards, 19.7 yards per catch. So there are going to be plenty of options. It's just a matter of who steps up, and that's just the top 6. There's plenty of depth at the wide receiver position. Tight end is kind of a different story. Not as much experience. Barkeys Gums comes in from Arkansas last year, didn't have a great season. You're hoping that he rediscovers his 2022 form where he caught 34 passes for 458 yards and 5 touchdowns. You also have Nick Elksness coming in from South Carolina. Veltre Jefferson transfers in from Fresno City College. Matt Burns comes in from Houston. Not a ton of production from any of those guys. Those are guys that are going to have to prove their worth, but you at least feel like you have competition and depth. Whether it's going to be productive depth, we don't really know. That leaves things up to the offensive line. The offensive line is going to be a bunch of new faces, and it'll be fun to see how they all gel together, because this is a group that plays a huge role on this team. This is a group that on the right side, you have Austin Boyd and Will Thomas coming back. Boyd started all 13 games last year. Thomas has 17 games of experience, 0 starts. On the left side, James Firmino has been kind of all over the place. He comes in from his most recent stop at Temple, 6'6", 315 pounds, started 2 games last year, looking to get a full season of starts under his belt. I think that there's definitely potential in his game, but it's going to take some time for him to sort some things out. But he is a guy with a ton of talent. Malik McGowan, kind of the same thing. A lot of experience, 39 total games that he's played, but he has yet to start in a game so far in his career. Reed Williams is kind of the opposite. Comes in from Chattanooga, comes in from the FCS level. Plenty of starting experience. 34 career starts, started all 12 games for Chattanooga last year. That's a good piece to have, an experienced piece for this offensive line. Behind them, you kind of have various different levels of talent, experience, all that. The most experienced player is coming from a guy that also transferred in from Coastal Carolina. Donovan Manson comes in with 21 games, no starts, but definitely has most experience of anybody in this group. You also have guys that are expecting to be potential rotational players as well. So behind Reed Williams, you have Dylan Drummond, who's eager to show what he can do at tackle. Guys like Mason Neubauer and Ed Haynes are hopefully going to be part of this as well. We don't really know what we're going to get until guys are able to step up and show their talent or display their talent on the big stage. There's so much turnover. It's going to take some time. And we'll talk more about the schedule later. The schedule doesn't give you a ton of time to prepare, but there's one game that's really making that kind of difficult. After that, you have plenty of time to figure things out before you get into conference play. The defense is really where you need to see the most improvement. Now, there were plenty of exciting players. Jackson Woodward is someone who's definitely going to be missed. He is someone that has the ability to make things very different in terms of making plays. He's a game changer, or he was a game changer for this team. And you're just hoping that you can find another guy like him. It's not going to be easy, but at the same time, you're just going to have to find a way to make things work. So we'll see what happens there. But that's at the linebacker position. We're going to start up front with the defensive line. And this is a defensive line that's, once again, just like everywhere else, full of turnover. Corey Hall is an interesting player coming in from Northern Arizona. 32 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. You will also, on opposite side of him, bring in a guy in Chief Borders from Pitt. 11 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. So you're looking at guys in different positions. In terms of Corey Hall, very productive player at that level, comes to the FBS level and hopes to take his talent and production to that level as well. Chief Borders, especially at Pitt, plenty of talent there. So it was probably just a matter of he needed more of an opportunity, more time to show what he can do. And if he's able to expand on his production, you feel really good about this group's ability to be disruptive. Behind them, you have a number of transfers that are going to play a role. Maybe a young player like Andre Porter will be part of that. Landon Thomas comes in from Arizona State. Tunis Adele is coming in from Michigan State. 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks for him. Osei Agbasi, 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. So you have guys that are definitely capable of playing. They have the talent, but can they turn that into production? Can certain guys that are coming from a lower level elevate their game to play at a higher level, play at a more challenging level? On the interior, you're kind of looking for guys to do the same thing. Jalen Lee is someone who has all the talent in the world. There's a reason why LSU wanted him coming out of high school, and there's a reason why he was still at LSU. They would have told him to leave probably a while ago if they didn't think that he could still compete. So getting him gives you some excitement. Now, there's no proven production yet, but you're looking at a guy who is hopefully able to take his game to another level. Lucas Conte had 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss for this team last year. So you're hoping that maybe he's able to do the same thing. Behind them, you have a couple of guys that should compete right away. Coastal Carolina transfer Cohen Fuller had 13 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Mohamed Adleab is going to be part of that as well. 19 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble. But those are 2 transfers that you don't really necessarily know if they're ready for this type of play. Winning in the Mountain West takes a certain level of talent and ability. And if you're not able to take things to that level, it might be a long season. But there's plenty of optimism surrounding this program. There's plenty of optimism surrounding the new faces, whether it's the coaching staff, whether that is the transfer portal talent. So it may not necessarily matter in terms of we don't know who our guys are right now. If you're able to figure that out eventually, that's really all that matters. And it's part of the process. The linebacker position feels set, whether that's returning talent or that's new guys coming in. And we already kind of talked about one of them, but replacing Jackson Woodward is going to be the biggest question. Now, Marzone McDuffie is the leading candidate to potentially do that and was pretty good for this team last year. 46 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 passes defended. Woodward made plays when they needed him the most, so someone has to replace that. Someone has to be able to make those plays at key moments, and McDuffie could be that guy. I think you have another guy in Blessing, Alualu Tuilamotu, could be a big-time player for this team. Gets an opportunity to be a starter. Had 8 tackles last year. Now he gets more opportunity, he gets more reps, he gets more chances. We'll see if he's able to take his game to the level that they need him. Otherwise, you're looking at someone else. Maybe a Jordan Eubanks is able to do that. You bring in a number of other transfers, 2 from Arizona, Justin Flo, Kamuela, Kayahu is going to be another guy to keep an eye on. You also have certain players like Isaiah Patterson who comes in from UCLA. So you have plenty of guys that are ready to take that step if called upon. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this group sorts themselves out, because there is proven production from McDuffie, but after that, you're looking at a group that is relatively green in terms of experience. You have new faces that are coming in, and really it just comes down to, I think the biggest X factor of this defense is Justin Flo. Justin Flo, if you go watch his highlight tapes from high school, and I know it's like going way back at this point, but he is someone that we all thought was going to be a star at college. He's a hard hitter. He's a heat-seeking missile, has all the talent to make plays. It just hasn't worked out. Whether that's consistency, injuries, you name it, he just hasn't been on the field. If he's able to rediscover that magic, that ability that he once had, and he's able to apply that to UNLV, he'll be a starter. He'll make this defense even better, and that's going to make all the difference for a defense that does need to take a step forward. Overall, this group needs to be better, and it's all going to start up front. You have so many new faces coming in that might take some time, but you have certain players that if they realize their potential, Jalen Lee's one of them. Chief Borders just needs his opportunity. Justin Flo needs to put it all together. There are certain players that if they do that, this is a much better defense than it was in 2024. The secondary is no different. You have 5 new faces that are probably going to start for this team. LaTerrence Welch comes in from a team in Arizona State that just went to the college football playoff, and he was a solid contributor for them. 19 tackles, 7 passes defended, 2 interceptions. You also bring in Jake Pope, who was stuck in a crowded Georgia defensive backfield. 4 games played for that team last year. Looking for an opportunity, he gets it with UNLV. Jaheim Joseph comes in from West Virginia. They just fire their coach. A new coach comes in. He looks for a new opportunity. Denver Harris is the guy we mentioned earlier in the video, someone who needs to realize his potential, play on a consistent basis, and do things that he has yet to do yet. He did some good things at UTSA. He needs to take his game to another level. Amaris Brown played 5 games in 2024. In 2023, we saw a guy who was really exciting. 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 4 passes defended, 2 interceptions. He is someone that if he reaches his potential as well, that's kind of the theme with it. If this group of 5 here is able to reach its potential, you're looking at a secondary that is going to be much better than 99th in terms of defending the pass. The defense overall is full of transfers, and the secondary is going to be no different. You bring in Andrew Powdrell from Montana State. You bring in Quandarius Keys from Pearl River Community College. You bring in Darian Stewart from BYU. You're looking at a ton of players that are new to this program, and that's just the approach that Dan Mullen is taking. And I think that this is a really interesting team in terms of what it could be, but you have a lot of work to do to get everybody on the same page and to make sure that they are ready to compete at a high level. Now, winning football games is really another concern you might have, especially with the roster turnover. And like I said, there's plenty of time, but the UCLA game in week 2 is probably the biggest concern you have. It is at home, which is really exciting. These guys are going to be hyped up for that. You get a tune-up game against Sam Houston on the road. So that will challenge this team. You feel like you have a good test for them and the ability to show that, hey, maybe we're ahead of schedule. The UCLA game would be a good measuring stick as well. After that, you get Idaho State and Miami of Ohio. So you're looking at a first 4 games where, in reality, I think they're going to be 3-1. Optimistically, they could be 4-0. We'll see what UCLA looks like. That's a good measuring stick, honestly, for both programs, for both UCLA and UNLV. After that, you start conference play with a trip to Wyoming and hosting Air Force. Those are 2 very different challenges for 2 very different reasons. Then you go to Boise State. That's a team that you lost to twice last year, and that is something that this fan base will be motivated to win, but I don't necessarily know how motivated and how much that sticks with this team because of the new faces. Now, the returnees are going to try to get everybody on board, but that's the team to beat right now. So maybe that's enough for this program. The final 5 games are all winnable. And you look at what they have to do. The road trips aren't necessarily anything to worry about. You go New Mexico at home, at Colorado State, Utah State and Hawaii at home, and at Nevada. So those are 5 games that you feel really good about. Even with all of the change, I think this team optimistically can go 11-1. The UCLA game and the Boise State game are probably the 2 biggest concerns for me in terms of what they're going to be able to do. I don't think they're going to beat both of them. I think that even if things are going well, going undefeated is really tough. Just ask Boise State. They saw that last year, and UNLV could be in the same thing. But that's if things are going really right. Even if things go wrong, though, I'd say they go 7-5 at worst. That's if things are going really, really wrong. Other teams step up, and it's just completely different. With the roster turnover that this team has, it might take some time for Dan Mullen to get things sorted out. Most of you are optimistic about this team. 48% of you think they're 1st through 3rd, 30% say 4th through 6th, 13% 7th through 9th, and 9% say 10th through 12th. If you're looking at a reason why this team should be better, it's because of the coaching staff that comes in. It's because of the amount of talented players that you have with potential. And if you're able to put that all together and gel early on, then winning 11 games is possible. But if it does need some time, this is still going to be a good team overall. I think that 7-5 is if things go really wrong. And again, other teams are taking massive steps that we did not expect. That being said, it's probably going to be around, that 8 wins, probably. We'll see what happens. But there's still plenty of reasons to be excited. The long-term future of this program is exciting with Dan Mullen here, and it feels like winning here is just getting easier. And if UNLV really figures things out, Dan Mullen is going to be a hot commodity in terms of the coaching carousel, and this is a team that's going to be a problem in the Mountain West for a long time.